Hi folks, let's solve LeetCode 11. So it's a very typical two-pointer problem. Let's take a look at what the problem is. So the problem is we're given an integer array which represent a line, and we need to choose any of the two lines to make it a container, and we need to get the maximum area. The definition of the area is the width is the difference of the index. For example, we choose these two red lines in this graph, then the width is 8 minus 1, which is 7. The height is the minimum value of the two lines. So the first red line is 8, the second red line is 7, so the height is 7. So for this example, the area is 7 multiplied 7, which is 49. So we need to choose any of the two lines and to get the maximum area. How do we solve this problem? One naive solution is to use a double for loop like this. We just iterate every possible pair, then we can get the maximum area. For this solution, the time complexity is O(n) squared, which will get TLE. So we need to find a better solution. Okay, so we can use two pointers here. This is an example. At first, I place I at beginning and place j at last. So in this case, the area is 8. Since the width is 8, the height is minimum, which is 1. Okay, now we need to make a decision, like to move I to the right by 1 or move j to the left by 1. Okay, imagine that if we fix I at 0, then no matter what j is, the height cannot be greater than 1, right? Since height is the minimum of the two lines, so the height cannot be greater than 1. And if we fix I at 0 and we move j, then no matter what j is, the height will be smaller or equal than 1, but the width will be smaller and smaller. So the new area will be smaller than the current area. So we cannot move j here. So it's impossible to find a better j if I is fixed at 0. So we need to move I. Okay, now I is 1, and the new area is 7 multiplied 7, which is 49. Okay, now we need to make decision again. Like in this case, if we want to move I or move j. Imagine that if we fix j at 8, then we know the height cannot be greater than 7, right? And in this case, we fix j, then we move I, and we know the width will be smaller and smaller. So the new area will be greater or will be smaller than the previous area. So we cannot move I. In this case, we need to move j. So j will be 7. So we find a pattern here. For any of the ij, we need to move the pointer whose height is smaller, right? So we can start coding. This is a template. First, I place I at 0, place j at the end, then initialize my area to 0, then finally return my area. Okay, I have for loop. While I is smaller than j, I will continue calculation. While I is equal than j, which means they meet, then the area is 0. So we can just stop. Okay, so width is j minus I. The area is width multiply the minimum of the two. Then we update the area in each iteration. Okay, the last piece of code is what we explained previously. So we need to make a decision based on the height of the two pointers. Okay, what's time complexity? Obviously, it's O(n), since we either move I or either move j, which means the width will be like smaller and smaller. At first, the width is O(n), at last, the width is like O1. So the time complexity is O(n). The space complexity is O1. Since we are not using any other complex data structures, we just define some local variables. So the space complexity is O1. Okay, that's the problem. Thanks, folks.